Hi, Ishkara, and I'm here with my husband, and I am an ENTP. He is an INTJ. So we are going to do the typology questionnaire, the two of us together. I thought that would be interesting. Anyway, here we go.
So we're going to do, what do you notice about people when you first meet them? What forms your opinion about others? That's pretty complicated. So for me,
okay.
I guess the first thing is obviously their physical appearance. Are they attractive? Are they not attractive? Do they have a third arm and crap?
Crap. Like they poop on themselves.
I wish that was never an issue. Every now and then, see some people and you gotta wonder. Sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Then of course I notice do they seem intelligent? Do they seem dangerous? Do they seem well put together?
Well, when I'm looking at people, the first thing that I usually notice is whether or not they are quick. That tends to actually be a big thing for me.
Just look past the third arm and just. Oh, I didn't even notice that they had a third arm.
Sometimes, but the thing is that that's a big thing that's very off-putting for me, is if people do not seem quick.
Third arm going out the fork, no problem.
Just because I am not distinguishing on physical characteristics as much as you are. Anyway. All right. And then, if you hosted the next Typefront hangout at your home, what food would you serve? So I thought this one would be kind of interesting because... Sorry, my son's trying to get at the iPhone.
Where's your mom then?
Then come see me. Because my husband's always joking about my food. I'm actually a good cook. But one thing that he always says when we are having people over is that I experiment far too often with the food.
Don't experiment on the guests. Shouldn't listen.
No. In fact, I was actually thinking about this when I was planning on doing the Typefront one by myself. And I was thinking that it wouldn't be that unusual for me to put out a tray of, say, Dutch licorice or hot peppers or something like that. And the reason why he laughs is because
she might forget to tell them that they're hot peppers.
John, what? Because this is something that actually you worry about more than me. Like you actually I tend to be more about wanting to see people's. I'm actually more likely to do that, and you would find that really, really rude, right?
Putting out hot peppers.
Well, to put out, I actually did put out hot peppers once
in
a fruit tray.
And you didn't tell them.
Well, I didn't realize they were as hot as they were. I also used to give Dutch licorice, which is salted licorice. I really like Dutch licorice, right? This is actually something that I enjoy. And when I had teachers when I was a kid, I would give them Dutch licorice. Thing is, it's salted licorice. So the likelihood that any given person in Canada is going to like Dutch licorice and not be of Dutch ancestry, in fact, so close Dutch ancestry that they still have an accent, or their parents do, is really, really rare. But I still give them to people and then laugh when they spit them out. John, I don't know that you would do that unless the person was your enemy.
Yeah.
And even then,
probably not.
I'm not. Yeah, you're.
I'm not gonna have them over if they're my enemy.
We'll be talking with them. Okay, round 2.
Oh right. Yeah,
okay, so what are we doing for round 2? How accurate do you think Jungian self-assessment inventories are. What issues do you have with these assessment tests? Go ahead.
Well, I think this kind of gets back to my type, because while I identify with INTJ, I often test as INTP, and I think really I'm usually very close to the borderline. So really I'm an INTX. And a lot of people say that there's no such thing, right? And if you think that, then you don't understand the Myers-Briggs and you don't understand the functions. But the thing is that if you think that, you don't really understand the world. One of the big scientific criticisms that people who study psychology and personality testing scientifically, one of the big criticisms they have with the MBTI is that very idea, where you're either an introvert or an extrovert, and there's no in between, right? When you look at people's actual test results and over broad groups of people, you see how they just meld into one another. Right? There's a continuum. We've decided to draw the line here and say this is introverted and this is extroverted. But the thing is that they do smoothly go into each other. And I think that's one of the big problems with these tests, right? And once you start getting into the functions, it really starts breaking down, right? Because you can be kind of on the borderline between introverted and extroverted. But when you look at the functions, that can mean that your functions are totally different.
I gotta break in here, because I have to talk about, like, your dad versus you. Your dad very, very clearly is an INTP. And you are very much not like your dad, right? Like, you, not really. Like, I mean, your dad is so, I mean, your dad almost like day thinks his way through life. Like, he's not particularly dreamy, but you know, like, he's sitting there designing plane wings. You know, like, that's what he does. And, you know, I mean, ruins your mom's dinner parties. Like, by, you know, debating with people or egging them on when he's a little tipsy. Like, when you look at you and your dad, you're actually very different. Like, But
you can take two INTPs and find two INTPs that are very different from each other as well.
Probably. But the thing is, like, John, you've said that you
So
often test...
Now you're comparing someone who's way over in the INTP to someone who's INTX. Right? I'm not as introverted as my father. Probably similarly, I'm intuitive.
Well,
more so
but the thing is,
thinking.
like, what I find about the functions, because I do find, like, I'm... Like, when you look at the Big Five theory, right?
Which one?
When you're looking at the Big Five theory, they're, Here, just one moment. I just have to find a back gun for the toddler. Just a sec. But yeah, so I wanted to talk to you, though. One of the difficulties that I see about the functions are that I think functions are actually going to be much more difficult to scientifically test. The point about the functions is I do notice that there is a system to the functions, and I can actually see that operating when I see you and I interacting. For one thing, this is another thing that kind of speaks to you being an INTJ, is that like the kind of relationship that we have is that mirror relationship. Well, we often jump to the same conclusions. We often have a lot of the same experiences. And now that could mean that you are an INTP and I guess that would make me an ENTJ. Can you see me as an ENTJ? Because if there is... Now, why the giggle, John?
Because I could not picture you ever looking for your keys where they go first. I hide her keys on her by putting them where they go. And she goes, John, you see my keys? And I say, I put them somewhere where you'll never find them. She usually then knows to go and look where they go.
This is supposed to be something where you talk me up, you know?
Oh, sorry. We didn't discuss that before.
But the thing is, just because something cannot be easily tested with what instruments we currently have doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And one of the points about the functions is, like, for example, I really can actually, I think that you could easily test for FE versus FI, right? That, to me, is an incredibly significant difference, right? And that's also a reason why I don't think that you could be.
Yeah,
like, looking at
it, though, is like the way that people talk about it doesn't really wash with reality, right? Like, it's not like you, like, a lot of people talk about it as you have FI or you have FE, right? And there's no in between, right? The thing is that, like, according to pretty much any test, I have FI, right? Like, I keep my emotions in check. You piss me off enough, and you're going to see my emotions, right?
No, but that's not totally what FI is, though. Like, FI is like the value system, right? That you create your own values, and I definitely see that. So,
right?
So one issue is, John, so some disagreements that we have tend to be about the kids and whether or not they ought to watch Family Guy, for example. Right? I have no problem with Family Guy. I like Family Guy. Yeah. But I am much more aware.
All sorts of opportunities to say, don't do that.
But I'm much more aware of the social norm as far as kids and television. And I don't want other parents stigmatizing the kids. Whereas, John, you have a lot less issue with that, right? Like, your concern is more about what in Family Guy is really going to harm the kids. And we both agree that there is nothing particular in Family Guy that will induce any sort of long-term harm on the kids.
If they watch it on a really old TV and sit too close to it, it can give them cancer. But that's the TV, not Family Guy.
Well, the big problem that if Family Guy were to cause any problems for the kids, it would be more associated with being put in front of it and completely ignored by their parents for the entire time they were growing up. And not really sitting there having somebody say, don't do this at home, kids. But I feel the social pressure. He does not. Right? And that's one of the big differences. And that's where, like, I can see that. But, you know, anyway. So, next. Do you type people around you?
Oh, yeah, we both do.
Is it fun?
We type fictional people, too. She's always going, what's this person from Game of Thrones, a TV show? What's their MBTI type?
I'm pretty sure they know what Game of Thrones is. I think there was a comment that there's, like, one person in the world not watching it. Yeah. Especially after the one that you haven't seen yet. That's where all the crap went down with, at the phrase.
This or is this
no,
Game
of Thrones, yeah.
We're now doing a video review of Game of Thrones. There's your Pimple.
Anyway, yes, we do type people around us. Why? Because it's fun. But also because it's helpful. And because it's fun.
I think that the...
It is
like,
helpful.
When you don't
is.
take the Myers-Briggs too far, I think it is useful. Like, when you... like, understanding, like, what introverted people are like, what extroverted people are like, I think that's helpful and useful, and I think that's accurate.
Anyway, how do you relate your presumed type with how you develop through your childhood and early adult years? But it's really funny because Nicholas, we have a 7-year-old, and I think Nicholas is actually an ENTP. And it's so funny because his teacher, she called, and she's like, I just wanted to tell you, your son kind of ruined my lesson today. And she, she's all happy she really likes him and everything, right? She's in the NFP. They get along great, stuff. But, so it was a class on measuring. And they were supposed to measure this thing. And she was saying, well, how can we measure it? Like, why don't we think of how we can measure this so that everybody can know exactly how big it is, even if they haven't seen it? And so she asked the kids for some suggestions, and one kid said, well, we could use our hands. We could see how many hands it is, right? And this was, of course, the point of the lesson was, to see why there is standardized measurement. Nicholas's hand shoots up, and he's like, well, that's not very smart, because all our hands are different sizes. If
I wasn't
somebody...
quite so snotty about it. The first time I heard about it anyway.
Well, it was kind of.
He said, that's not going to work.
Okay. Dramatic effect. Whatever. Oh, just a sec. Hang on.
My mom said to me.
Oh, so, yeah. Your mom always tells me stories about you and what a pain you were when you were a kid. Like, one of the things that she said is that you always wanted to be named Jamie when you were a little kid, and that you actually convinced a lot of the neighbors that your name actually was Jamie, and so kids would keep coming by asking for Jamie, and you get really mad. And the other thing was that, yeah, you called your parents by their first names for a long time.
Yeah.
You still call your mom Shirls?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he calls his mom Shirls and my mom Mom. Yeah. What else? Some other stories. Oh, yeah. That you always would be very, very annoyed if you were not right. Why don't you talk about being right? Because that's a particular thing that people accuse you of, that you take offense to a lot.
Well, I always want to be right. However, I don't mean that the way that most people mean it, right? Because I actually want to be right. I don't want to look right. I don't want people to think I'm right. I don't want to convince people that I'm right when I'm not right. I want to be right. So if I'm having an argument with somebody and they're actually more accurate than I am, I want them to convince me. Of course, I want other people to be right too. I think that's definitely an INTJ thing as well. You want everybody to be right.
It's an NT thing, I think, is that accuracy is really important. So, like, I also, like, when people tell me things that they are doing, and it's, like, for really poor scientific reasons, or they cite some study that's, like, not accurate, or, like, it's really, really, really hard. I know that it's rude if I leap down their throats, so I try not to. But it's hard. Instead, I try to alert them of the facts, perhaps give them some tools to make a decision based on reality. And if they then continue to choose to not, I have done my bit. Would you say that is true of you as well? I think that's a shared experience on our part. Except you're a little better at the not leaping down people's throats. Some of the time. No, because you tend to... See, the thing is that I tend to continue to engage people even after they have frustrated me to no end. Whereas you tend to not engage with people who you find frustrating. Like if they're values, because really it is a value, right? You really value truth, right? That's probably one of your main core values. That's where we clash. I'm truthful.
I can see that I'm in a minefield here. And I have to be very careful where I step.
I just thought I'd throw that out there. So you value truth. You value like scientific reasoning and methodology, right? I value that too, right? That we're both on a level with, and I don't think that we would be able to work well together if we didn't, right? Like that was probably an important factor in being able to have a relationship, right? Okay. So, what is your concept of love, human sexuality, and morality? Well, we touched on this a little bit. So, John, how moral do you think I am?
That's a complicated question, because with certain things, I think that, like, often with honesty, you often will tell a lie to smooth through a situation or not hurt somebody's feelings, when in the long run I think that the person would be better off if you told them the truth.
Okay.
But on other things, like you care about people and you're definitely willing to go out of your way to help people, and would tend to, I'm willing to help people too, however, I often it wouldn't occur to me, whereas it does occur to you, right? Like a friend of ours is needing to work a lot of hours and having a lot of trouble, and she's a single mom, and Sam goes, oh, well, why don't we take your kid, 2 nights a week, and that way you don't have as much burden of childcare, right? Wouldn't tend to occur to me, but I was quite happy to help look after the kid, right? So.
Yeah. I don't think that would have occurred to me when I was younger. I think that was something that started to occur to me as I started to have things that were harder. Like, I needed difficult experiences in order to really get that. Because when I was younger, actually, that was one of the things that used to really, friends used to say to me, was that I did not do those sorts of things, and that I was very willing to hurt people or let people continue on in difficult situations. And by younger, I mean even in my 20s, right? But it always hurt me when I thought that people didn't, like when it was me just not noticing, right?
I don't think that's the child I thought playing at the sink. I thought it was one of the kids doing dishes or filling in the glass. I'm pretty sure that's Marcus making a mess. Excuse me.
And
it is.
it is.
There we go.
Oh, is he really making a mess? He can play.
Marcus, come here, yo.
Anyway, just a second.
You need to...
Crisis averted.
So, I would say that, John, that you are actually fairly moral. Probably, depending on what we're talking about, like you, you are actually more likely to not have any issue with somebody, okay, let me phrase this right. If you are talking about issues of sexuality, etc., so human sexuality, your morality on that probably is, like, you define yourself as pretty much liberal as far as human behavior goes, right? But conservative as far as fiscal policy.
Classical liberal, yeah.
Yeah. So, so the big thing is you want people to be able to live their life how they want to live their life. And ultimately, actually, I would say...
Anybody else.
I would say... Hang on. But as far as morality, like when I was saying about you with morality, I would say that you are probably more consistent with your morality than I am. My issue is that I think I can be convinced on a lot of things that way, right? You tend to view there being 1 or 2 or 3 possibilities, or a much more narrow window of what falls in the category of reasonable, feasible, truthful, valuable, right? And I tend to see a lot more possibilities where this would be valid in this situation, and that would be valid in this situation, and this would be valid in this situation. Oh, and I talked to this person, and that's valid there, right?
Whereas I go, this is our situation. Who cares? Valid in that situation. That situation doesn't apply. Let's worry about this one.
So what winds up happening is if we talk too much, he gets really frustrated. But when he sees what I'm doing, usually he's fine. Right?
It depends what you're doing. Sometimes you're wandering off in the tangent.
No, but I'd say that usually we agree on a lot of like actual in practice things. It's when we're actually talking theory things, you know, and I'm sitting here saying that, you know, a mass murderer might have had his reasons. Or when I was sitting, another example
Generally
was
do.
when
Usually
I
good
was
enough.
sitting listening to some lawyers debate.
Usually not a good word to put in there either. I said they usually do. Just that they're not usually good enough. Perhaps usually shouldn't go in there.
Well, yeah, but like for example, when you know, when the lawyers were talking, and they were talking about whether or not, like when people come up to a criminal lawyer and say, like, how would you feel if you got somebody off? There's
Who's more to
But-
it? Who's got somebody off that you knew was guilty and they went on to commit more murders?
well, exactly. You have to be able to be willing to let somebody go, because there's a whole lot more people. Like, really, the fact of the matter is that statistically speaking, there are so many more people who commit crimes and actually or who do not commit crimes and go to jail for a huge amount of time. And yet I don't hear prosecutors getting...
it's just that...
Like, where are the prosecutors getting, you know, what if you know that somebody might be innocent and they get off?
Well,
Are
they
they
turned out to
actually
actually be innocent. Right?
You know, and it's like, it's not like, you know, prosecutors are grilled by the public, like, you made that person go to jail. Like, come on, why do criminal lawyers only ever get this? And that said, it's not like it happens all that often. Like, criminal lawyers are not going, hey, hoo-hoo. I don't think so. Yeah.
Then he went and killed a school bus full of children. Yay! They usually do that.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have any sort of life philosophy? What is your take on the meaning of life? John, are you all about happiness?
No.
Am I all about happiness?
No.
No. So, what...
I actually think that Sam Harris actually had something really going there. Basically, in one of Sam Harris's books, he kind of modifies utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is basically whatever leads to the greatest happiness is what's best morally. And I think that I remember in university that I'm going through some obvious problems.
Whatever.
Like, you know,
Sorry,
like
I just
you
zoned out.
shoot up heroin and stuff, and that makes you deliriously happy. Well, isn't that a good thing then, right? And that's, I think, a problem that utilitarianism has trouble overcoming, right?
But?
And yes, there are answers to that. However, it falls apart in some places. And Sam Harris, his modification was, instead of looking at happiness, he looked at well-being. And I think that's really great.
Would you
there's
say...
some situations where, you know, like what the moral answer is, like, that's not going to give you an easy answer. But you know what? I think with some moral questions, there shouldn't be an easy answer.
Okay, so the thing is, this is something that, you know, that my whole rant on extroverts, introverts, blah, 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 that, you know, pop culture fascination with introversion right now. So, you are definitely an introvert, whether or not we're quibbling about INTJ, INTP, whatever. You're definitely an introvert. So one of the things about introverts is that they say that introverts seek meaning and extroverts seek happiness.
That's dumb.
Oh, how is that dumb? Why don't you explain, John?
That's not what they're about. Many introverts seek happiness too, right? It's about where you get your energy and how you like to spend your time, whether you like to spend your time with others, whether you like to spend your time alone, when you need to recharge your batteries, do you go out dancing with a whole bunch of people, or do you go and read a book or play a computer game or something?
Oh, right? Don't I read books?
Well,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
But the thing is that when you're recharging your batteries, right?
I know. Yeah, no,
You don't go read a book to recharge your batteries.
But my thought is, okay, regarding life philosophy.
You're noisy. Now quit it. You're being noisy.
Like, I don't know that I have a particular guiding principle that leads me through life. Probably the biggest philosophy that I've had that actually makes me able to cope with my own existence really well is just thinking that, the average lifespan is getting significantly longer. So if I don't accomplish it today, I have several years to accomplish it later.
That makes me think of Suzuki Shozan, the diamond wisdom of Suzuki Shozan. And it's the death energy. Don't put it off until tomorrow. You should gain energy knowing that you're going to die, because if you just always put it off until tomorrow, you can never get anything done. But if you know that you're going to die, and know that you only have a certain amount of time in this world, it drives you to get things done. I think that there's real truth to that.
That's carpe diem.
It's so...
No!
No, it's not carpe diem.
It's
not
very
the same.
similar.
It's not seize the day. It's not like live for today and just do whatever you want now. It's get it done. You're gonna die. You keep putting it off, you're gonna die, and it's still not gonna
Is that a threat?
Maybe.
He wants me to clean
Clean up the kitchen.
Yeah. No. Yeah, my issue with that is that I'm not actually able to get all those things done. And if I live my life by that philosophy, I will probably commit suicide. That'll be the way that I go down. It'll be a swan dive onto train tracks while a train is coming.
It is possible to get things done.
Hopefully with nobody running it.
It is possible to get things done, you know that, right?
I know, but you know what? I have lots of ideas and I want to get them all done. And that's the difference. Like, it's
you
not...
want to get them all started.
No, but there are things that I want to do with my life. And I come up with lots and lots and lots
of things to start.
of things. And there is a lot of security in knowing that, the things that I can get done today are the only things I have to get done today. And, even if I don't get them done today, there is tomorrow. Like, there's an expression in Spanish, canta mañana. And it kind of means like a procrastinator. And like he says tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And, it's an insult. But I've owned it. I have reclaimed it.
She lives it.
Well, we're happy. See, I do pursue happiness. Anyway, okay, so...
There is another half to that one. What is your take on the meaning of life?
42?
Yes.
Is that the number?
No. I have, participated in a lot of debates on atheism and religion and the debate between the two. And a lot of people on the science side have said that, science can't answer the questions, like big questions like about the meaning of life. And that's a total load of crap. What most people mean by what is the meaning of life is like, why were we put here, right? And science has answered that. Our genes created us in order to pass themselves on. So the meaning of life in that sense is the continuation of life.
Levi
a lot
Strauss.
of people find that so unsatisfying. Suck it up, princess. Doesn't matter if it's satisfying or not. The truth doesn't have to be satisfying.
But actually, John, to go with the whole meaning of life thing and your genes passing themselves on and stuff like that, like, the thing is that there is something to find in the meaning of life being living on, right? Being passing on your genes, or being having minions.
Nicholas, stop.
No, go, please. Like having a legacy, you know. Like it doesn't a life. Like I don't. One of the things that I actually think about the whole debate regarding, like I don't actually understand why religion gets to have the stranglehold on meaningful existence. Because I think that people can find and make meaning out of a lot of things. This is part of the function of our brains. You know, I mean, we have a huge human history of finding meaning in existence, in our own existence. And I don't think, like, there are many sorts of philosophies which are not specific to any sort of theist idea, right? Polytheism, pantheism, anything like that. You know, I mean, even people wanting to create a foundation that helps other people and wanting their name recognized, their name to move on through history, right? This sort of legacy that a lot of people have. Well, that is meaning in a way. I mean, looking at the number of people that have found meaning in their lives and not even needing religion in order to have that. Like, one does not, I mean, there's a lot of people who are religious leading rather meaningless, mediocre lives. Atheists too, right? Like, it's if you find meaning, you will have meaning. If that is what you count wealth in, you will accumulate it. Or at least you'll try to. Unless you get hit by a truck. Tomorrow. Hey, Soraya?
Dog get by a truck and she's fine, sort of.
Sort of. Anyway, yeah. So is that good enough? Do we get to move on now?
Sure.
Okay. So, round 4. After a hard day of work or not, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies and what are you good at? So we all know what you do, John. What do you do?
Video games.
Video games.
Yep.
GGO! Yes. Actually, Nicholas, he was doing a project at school, and he wrote something about DEE. And the teacher was like, what? Asking all the kids if they knew what DDO was. Nicholas didn't know. He's like, I don't know, it's what Dad does.
Dungeons and Dragons Online. See if I can charge them for this too.
Wait.
Get some royalties or something.
Anyway. Here, what's this dinosaur? What color is the dinosaur?
It's blue.
It's a blue dinosaur. Can I kiss you?
No.
So, that's what you do to unwind. But what are you good at, John? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? This is a job interview.
Making children scream. Hmm? I'm good at making children scream. Huh. I'm pretty good at being a dad, aren't I? Hmm? Am I pretty good at being a dad? Yeah, good girl.